MTN has denied that it's in talks with Loop Telecom. This follows reports that it was looking to buy a stake in the Indian mobile operator to gain entry into the world's fastest growing wireless market. Earlier, Business Standard newspaper had quoted people close to the development as saying that MTN has been negotiating through merchant bankers and Loop Telecom was willing to sell up to 45% stake in the firm, which is not listed. MTN spokesperson Nozipho January Bardal said a short while ago that she could deny firmly any media speculation suggesting any such talks. Well, for more on this issue, Spiwe Chireka, ICT analyst at Frost & Sullivan, is on the line to discuss the telecoms industry and the developments we're seeing therein. And she joins us live. Spiwe, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. Well, we've heard, first of all, news this morning that MTN was in talks to buy a stake in India's Loop Telecom. The company's come out and vehemently denying this. First of all, are we looking at pure speculation here, or is this a case of where there's smoke, there's got to be fire?
Well, from our part, if we look at what has happened in the last few months as far as MTN is concerned, we would say that, well, I guess it's a case of where there is smoke, surely there must be fire, because we have seen MTN picking up its acquisition activity, interest in acquisition over the last 2 years. So first Reliance, then Bharti, then we saw Rascom, and now Loop is on the table.
Why the sudden ramp up in MTN's acquisitive plans here? I mean, let's take a look at the group's strategy at the moment.
Okay. Well, if we look at over the last 2 years or so, we haven't really seen MTN make any major acquisitions. So from our part, we are suspecting that it is sort of part of that acquisition cycle where they're sort of looking to buy more operations. And if we look at, say, within the existing operations, minus Nigeria and some of the Northern Africa, Middle East operations, there isn't really much fireworks, if I may put it that way, in some of their markets. And if we look at South Africa, it's pretty much what's headed towards stalling in terms of growth. So it would make sense for them to now start looking elsewhere to sort of ramp up their operations.
So a move of this nature, of course, would mean a move into the world's fastest growing wireless market, that being India. Loop Telecom, let's do a bit of a background check to what kind of a company we're actually looking at here.
Okay, well, Loop is not one of the, call it the leaders in the market, or what would say the top 3 leaders in the market per se, because you've got Bharti, you've got Vodafone, and the other guys sort of dominating the market. So MTN is coming in on a sort of lower position in the market. So the key thing would be that, well, to try and take on the other guys that are already entrenched in the market would be a recipe for disaster. So it would be very important for MTN to really define what exactly they want from the market. Is it a case of just maintaining healthy margins, therefore focus on certain select markets rather than trying to be one of the big major players in that market, because it is a very difficult market to kind of challenge the market leaders at the moment.
Well, if we look at the kind of stake that was speculated about, I mean, rumor was that Loop is willing to sell about 45% in the firm. I mean, if that is, does hold any merit there, what kind of strategy would MTN be entering with here? Because they wouldn't be then the majority shareholder in this company.
Yes, I must say that we found that pretty interesting, because that's not really how MTN does things. I mean, if we look at in the past, they always aim to get controlling shareholding. So from our side, we would believe that it is just a case of having a presence there. And nothing more than that. Just not diversifying your geographical risk, put it that way, or expanding their operations without any real intention of actually controlling a company within that market, because like I said, it is very different from what they usually do.
Well, that a player on the continent looking out. We've got players outside of the continent looking in, though. China Mobile, the world's largest mobile phone carrier, is looking for acquisitions, it says, in Africa, but it doesn't have any set targets at the moment. Seeing that we are running the rumor mill at this stage, I mean, what would be a good speculative bets in terms of targets in your view?
Well, I mean, like we predicted towards the end of last year, we are expecting, call it a new breed of investors into Africa, so particularly from the Far East, which are countries that have traditionally not been in Africa. So first India, now we've got China. But if we look at the level of availability of merger and acquisition targets, it is shrinking and shrinking fast. within Africa, and also the competition for those mergers and acquisitions targets is also intensifying. But there are a few companies that we believe could present acquisition targets, and this is really based on the fact that, okay, on the one hand, they've got quite a significant number of countries that they're operating in, which is very attractive. But if we look at their consolidated operating revenues, say looking from a US dollar base or from billions of US dollars, they are still sort of on the lower side of the scale if we look at the other global competitors. So those companies would be key merger and acquisition targets. So from those that we've identified, we've got Econet Wireless, which has presence like Zimbabwe, Burundi. They have a stake in Kenya. They hold part of Zain in Nigeria. So they would also be very attractive. Multilinks, which is in Nigeria, although it is not a confirmed sell, but should the opportunity arise or should Telkom decide to pull out, which they've sort of hinted to, that could be another option. We've got Camtel in Cameroon, which has a dormant mobile license and is expected to sell over the next 4 to 5 years, because it's sort of a government-held entity, but they haven't been very competitive in the market, so we are expecting them to privatize or at least sell a stake in the future. Then if we look at the more sort of established operators, that could be potential targets. We've got Millicom, which is in about 15 countries in Africa. And Millicom's previous strategy has been known to be they get into a market, make as much money as they can, then they exit. So they've been doing very, very well at present. And well, if we look at the cycle of what they normally do, then they're likely to look to exit probably in the medium term. So they could be a target. Then you've got Etisalat, which is another one, Middle Eastern company, has presence in Sub-Saharan Africa in about just under 20 countries within the Middle East and Africa. So there would also be another target. And then obviously Orascom, which we know that has been in talks with MTN.
Well, certainly the opportunity is there. I mean, just the fact that China Mobile says that whether it gets a majority or a minority stake in any company, it's not going to be complaining. That is spelling to an extent just some of the investment merit that that these companies hold. At the same time, we've had Fitch saying this morning that lack of regulatory uncertainty on progressive issues could hinder financing opportunities for the sector moving forward. Very quickly, Spiwe, your overall view on that.
Okay, well, definitely regulatory uncertainty has been one of the key stumbling blocks for any form of investment within the telecom sector, just in Africa as a whole. So we would definitely expect it to be one of those things that they'll need to address. But then again, what would an acquisition be without any challenges? So if they can get around that, I mean, the returns, as I've just illustrated through the number of operators available, are actually quite high.